I think that we tend to overcomplicate lighting sometimes. So you take an image like this, for example. You have my light right here, which is my key. I use this light over here as somewhat of a fill to support the key. And then I have a light overhead up here, which is really going to just be a background light. But it only comes on if I feel like I need it. I don't necessarily know if I want the background to be white or somewhat off white or something in that effect. So I kind of have it up there on standby. And then what I'll do is I'll put all of them on separate channels. So for example, this will be on A and this will be on B and this will be on C, for example. So then I'm able to control all of them, or I can adjust the power on them independently. My subject obviously is going to my subject obviously is going to sit here, and then they can use this table right here as like a prop almost, because they can just kind of lean on it. But what it also does is it provides a certain level of negative fill, so some of the light that kind of spills off of the octobox is going to hit the ground, and then it'll return back up to the face. And but because of this table being here with the black top, it'll reduce some of that from happening. So here are a few of the examples. You can see how I started off with just kind of having the light set up as I showed you in the reference. We take a shot, and then this is where we start. So I popped over to my tablet so that I could illustrate this a little bit better, hopefully. So the main thing that I'm looking for is how the light starts to disappear in these areas or creates more exaggerated shadows in areas that when you look at her in person, you don't see that. So like it starts to pool, like the shadows pool in these other areas under the arms. It creates these kind of striations that you start to see on her body in the picture that when you're looking at her in person, you don't see, but it's because of how the light is angled that it starts to create more of a pool of darkness in areas that I honestly would not prefer. I mean, I like the idea of there being highlights and shadows and some type of contour to the face, but I don't want that to be exaggerated by like poor placement of light. So, like for example, under here I'm cool with, under here I'm cool with. Even some of the darkness here and the darkness here, I'm fine with some of this, but I want to try to illustrate it a little bit differently by being able to bring up some of those shadows, with a different modifier or even just different placement of my primary modifier. But in this situation, I'll show you how when I integrate a foam core from below, how it'll lift up a lot of those shadows without having to do very much. So overall, I kept the light in the same place. All I did was take that white foam core and put it on top of that black board. So it's almost like it takes the floor and picks it all the way up to under her bust line and under her arms. And then you'll see what the result looks like here. All right, so let's discuss it. When I look at this image, those same areas that might have been a little darker are lighter now, right? Those same areas that were gathering up a lot of the shadows and creating a really dark contour on the cheek, and all of those areas start to soften just simply by putting a foam core under the bottom of her. So what I want to do is try to find a balance. Maybe this might be too much fill, right? I want to have a little bit more darkness under the neck so that I can see the separation between the face and the neck. But ultimately, I think that this is doing the job as far as filling in some of those shadows that were creating a bit more weight on her face than what was actually there in person. So here are a few more examples of finished images. Obviously, these were cleaned up a little bit, but I mean, kept everything pretty clean. You could even see the catch lights in her eyes. And then I used a shallower depth of field on a few of those. Hope that was helpful. Let me know in the comments.